Welcome to this mini-series where we're going to be building a variety of shops inside of Roblox Studio. To give you a quick preview of just some of the things that we're going to be doing in this little mini-series, there is going to be a Shop Gui, which will allow us to purchase a currency. So we're going to be able to trade gold for gems in this scenario. And we'll also have another shop format similar to this one where we'll directly sell items to the player as well. And because my goal with this system is to make it as dynamic as possible, we'll very likely have other categories here so that we can hopefully cover all of the different types of shops that you guys may want. And if you want any sort of shop in specific, please leave a comment down below because I'm definitely going to be checking them out and using them for motivation for future episodes. Now, before we begin, in order to save us a lot of time, we're actually going to be starting off by using my own personal game template, which I'll leave a link down below in the description to. Once you visit this link on the game page, you're able to click the three dots right here and then click Edit in Studio. And then that should open up the game directly inside of Roblox Studio for you. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this game template, essentially it includes the module framework, which allows us to write all of our logic inside of module scripts, a UI scaling script, which will automatically scale UIs to all device sizes, the profile service for easily managing and handling players' data, and maybe one or two other libraries, which just makes creating our games significantly easier. Now, even if you're completely unaware of what any of those systems are, none of those are very important to this episode, but if you're wanting to learn more about those systems, I'll leave a link down below in the description to about a 3-part series where you can learn all the specifics about each of those systems. So feel free to go ahead and check those out once you're finished this video. And now once you have that all set up inside of Studio, we're going to go ahead and begin by creating the GUI. Now, anytime that we're creating a GUI inside of Roblox Studio, we're going to follow a specific process. So first, we want to go ahead and emulate our screen size so that we're all working with the same viewport size inside of Roblox Studio. To do this, we're going to go to the Test tab, and then we're going to click on Device in the Emulation section. Once we click on that, you're going to want to go to this little drop down right here, and you're going to want to change your device to the desktop section where it's 1920 by 1080. And then for this other little drop down beside that, you're going to want to make sure that you have selected Fit to Window. And now we can begin creating our GUI, knowing that we're all starting at the same place. Now, the first thing we're going to do is actually kind of modify the Currency GUI a little bit. Basically, we want to put another frame below this frame where we're going to hold a couple of on-screen buttons that players can click. And we're actually only going to display a single button, but that button is going to be for opening and closing the shop. So to do this, we're going to go inside of the Star GUI, inside of the right screen GUI, and now inside of here we have a frame called Currency. Now, what we're actually going to want to do is add in a brand new frame to the right GUI. Then we're going to go ahead and drag and drop the Currency frame inside of this frame right here. Now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and update the size of this frame, and on the x-axis, we're going to go with 265 pixels, and on the y, we're going to go with 65. Now, the y doesn't matter too much because we're also going to adjust the automatic size property, and we're going to set this to y, because what this is going to do is actually adjust the y-axis of the size automatically based on the children that are stored inside of it. So even though our size property still displays 65, if we look at the absolute size property, we can see that is set to 108, meaning that the y-axis has actually been adjusted, but that doesn't affect the size of the y-axis right here, but that change is reflected inside of the absolute size. Anyways, next what we're going to do is go ahead and reposition this, and we want to reposition this towards the middle right of the screen. So for the anchor point on the x-axis, we're going to set that to 1, and then on the y-axis, we're going to set that to 0.5. Then for the position, on the scale of the x-axis, we're going to set that to 1, and then on the scale of the y-axis, we're going to set that to 0.5. And now that's looking pretty good. Next, what we're going to do is add another frame inside of this frame, which we're going to rename to be called Buttons. Another thing that we want to do is add in a UI list layout to this frame, which will help us easily lay out our two frames. Now, going back to this original frame, we're going to go ahead and set the background transparency to 1 so that we no longer see that. Then inside of the buttons frame, we could also actually set the background transparency to 1 because we don't care about the background for that either. When it comes to the size of the buttons frame, we're essentially going to go ahead and just copy the size from the currency frame or the parent frame and just set it to basically the same thing. So 265 on the x-axis and 65 on the y. And then we're also going to adjust the automatic size property from none to y. Then inside of the buttons frame, we're going to go ahead and create a text button. We'll rename this text button to be called Shop, and then we'll go ahead and set the text property to nothing. Then what we're going to do is go inside of the currency frame and then go inside of either the coins or the gems frame and essentially just copy every single thing that's inside of here and paste that into our shop frame. Then what we're going to do is adjust the background color of the text button, and we're going to go with the same background color as our other frames. So we can go ahead and copy and paste that right there. Now for the size of the shop text button, we're going to set this to about 65 pixels on both the X and the Y axis. So just like that. Then let's look inside of this text button. and we have our icon image label. What we're going to do is update the anchor point and position of this, and we want to center this. So for both of the axes on the anchor point, we'll set those to 0.5, and then for the position, for both the axes, we want to set them to 0.5 for the scaled property, just like that. Now you may want to adjust the size of the icon a little bit. I'm going to go with 0.8 in the scale for both the axes, and I think that's looking pretty good. We can then go ahead and adjust our UI stroke, because with our UI stroke, we want to change the apply stroke mode from contextual to border, because this is inside of a text button. So contextual would apply the stroke to the text of the text button, but there is no text there, and we want it to appear around the outside of the button. Then for the UI corner, because we want this button to 100% be a circle, we're just going to set this to 1 on the scale, and that'll guarantee that we get a complete circle. Then we'll go ahead and rename the amount text label to be called title, and we'll adjust the text of this to say something like shop. Then we want to adjust the text X alignment to center, and then we're going to go ahead and resize this. Now on the X-axis, we're going to set that to 1 for the scaled, and then on the Y-axis, we're going to go ahead and set that to about 30 on the offset. Now that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and adjust its position. Now we want this to appear towards the bottom center of the button. So for the anchor point on the X-axis, we're going to set that to 0.5, and then the Y, we'll set that to 0. And then for the position, we're going to set this to 0.5 on the X scale axis, and then 1 on the Y scale. So now the text is appearing towards the very bottom of the button. And now our button itself is actually looking pretty good. Now next what we're going to do is throw in a UI list layout inside of the button's frame, and then duplicate this a couple of times. Now we can see a couple of buttons inside of here, but let's go ahead and adjust our UI list layout a little bit. So first off, with the UI list layout, we're going to adjust the fill direction from being vertical to being horizontal. And now that they're laid out in the correct direction, we can go ahead and adjust the padding between these buttons, and we'll set that to about 15. Actually, I want some more padding in there, so maybe like 35. And I think that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and duplicate the button one more time, and now we still only actually see 3 buttons on our screen right here. The reason for that is because we want to adjust the wraps property and set that to true. So now when there's too many buttons to be displayed on a single line, this will wrap, meaning that the button will then appear beneath the other ones. Then let's go down to the alignment section because we want to adjust some more properties here. For the horizontal alignment, we're going to adjust this to right because we want our buttons to start off on the right-hand side. So if we only have a single button, we want this to appear towards the right rather than appearing towards the middle or the left. And actually, that's pretty much all the properties that we have to adjust inside of here. Other than that, these buttons are actually looking pretty good. So let's just go ahead and delete all the other ones, and we'll only leave a single shop button. Then let's go back to the UI list layout that's inside of the original frame. Because inside of here, we want to adjust the padding property, and we're going to give about 20 pixels of space between both of those frames. Additionally, we want to change the horizontal alignment from left to right, and then with the vertical alignment, we want to change that from top to center. Now that we've done all of this, let's go ahead and add in a UI padding instance to this frame so that we can move these a little bit off the very edge of the screen on the right-hand side. So what we want to do is adjust the padding right property, and we're going to set the offset of this to about 10. Now that gives us 10 pixels of space between our frames and the edge of the screen. Now I almost forgot, but one more thing that we might want to do is update the image of the icon image label inside of our button, and I'm going to change it to this right here. Now, if you need icons for your game, or if you want to get some icons and follow along with me, we have a free icon pack that you can get from my website. I'll leave a link down below in the description, and it includes a ton of different icons. And if you want to use those icons or any other icons and you're unfamiliar with how to actually use them or upload them to Roblox, what you're going to want to do is go inside of Studio, go to the View tab, click on Asset Manager, and then you'll see the Asset Manager right here. Click this little upload icon, which is called Bulk Import. It'll prompt you to select all of the images that you want to upload, and then you can go ahead and upload them that way. Then still inside of the Asset Manager, you can go to the Images folder and you should see the images right here. I don't have any uploaded here, so that's why I don't see any. But to give you an example, if you do see the images, all you have to do is right click them and then click Copy Asset ID, and then you'll paste that directly into the image property of the image that you want to change. Cool, so now that we finished updating the right GUI, we're actually going to go ahead and create the Shop GUI. To do this, we're going to go inside of the Star GUI and create a brand new screen GUI, which we'll go ahead and rename to be called Shop. Then inside of here, we're going to go ahead and create a frame, and with this frame, let's go ahead and resize it. On the X offset, we're going to go ahead and set that to 900, and on the Y offset, we're going to set that to about 600. Then let's go ahead and center this. So for the anchor point, we'll say 0.5 on both those axes, and then for the scale of both the X and the Y axis, we'll set that to 0.5 as well. And now the frame is centered on our screen. One thing I almost forgot is we do want to adjust some properties of the screen GUI. Some of you might want to have the ignore GUI inset set to true, but everybody definitely wants to have reset on spawn set to false because we never want our GUIs to reset on spawn. Next, what we're going to do is update the background color of this, and I'm going to go with this nice little blue right here. Then we'll go ahead and add in a UI stroke to this, which for the thickness, we're going to go ahead and set to about 5. Then we'll go ahead and create a UI corner, and for the corner radius on the offset, we're going to set that to about 22. Next, we're going to create a frame inside of here. which we'll rename to be called title. And now for the size of this, on the X offset, we're going to set that to 400. And on the Y, we're going to set this to about 75. Now we want to center this horizontally. So when it comes to the anchor point, we'll go ahead and set the X to 0.5. And for the position in the offset, in the X scale, we'll set that to 0.5 as well. Now that's centered horizontally. But now we want to bring this down a little bit from the top. So on the Y offset, we're going to go ahead and set that to 20. And now that's looking pretty good. Then we'll go ahead and update the background color of this, which for the background color, what you can do is either go with your own color, or I like to just pick the screen color, and then we'll go ahead and darken this a little bit. So I think that looks pretty good, but of course you can go with whatever color you would actually like. Now to save some time, I'm going to go inside of the right GUI, inside of the frame, inside of the buns frame, inside of the shop button that we just created, and then copy the title text label that we just created and paste that inside of the title frame. The reason for that is because this already comes with a UI stroke, and it already comes with a bunch of our text properties that we already have set that we like to keep anyway. So what we're going to do is first adjust the size of this. Now for the text size, we're going to set that to 60 because we do want this to be pretty large. And for the size on both the X and the Y scale, we'll just set it to 1. So that's the entire width and height of the frame. Then for the position, we want to go ahead and center this. So for the anchor point, we'll set both of those to 0.5. And then for the position on both the scale, we'll set that to 0.5 as well. Now this is looking pretty good, but another thing that we want to do is adjust the stroke a little bit because we want to increase the thickness from 3 to about 5 since the text is a lot bigger. Then we can go ahead and add in a UI corner to the title. I'm just going to duplicate the UI corner that's right here, drag that inside of the title frame. And with the corner radius, you might want to increase it or you might want to decrease it depending on however you like. I'm going to set it to about 32 to make those corners a lot more round. But like I said, feel free to adjust this however you like it. And now we're pretty much done with creating the title. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead and create the exit button. So inside of here, we're going to go ahead and create a text button, which we'll rename to be called exit. For the background color of this, I'm going to go with a nice little red, something like that. And then let's go ahead and resize this. For the size of this, on both the offsets, we're going to go ahead and set it to 75. So it's going to be 75 by 75 pixels. Then let's go ahead and set the text of this to blank because we don't want there to be any text. And now let's reposition this towards the top right-hand corner of our UI. Now for both the axes and the anchor point, we'll set that to 0.5. And now that makes this appear towards the very top left-hand corner of the UI. But we want this to appear at the top right-hand corner. So what we're going to do is only adjust the X scale and set that to 1. And now it's appearing at the exact top right-hand corner of our UI. Then what I'm going to do is just duplicate the title text label from our title frame, drag that inside of the text button. We'll go ahead and set the text of this to say X. We definitely want to go ahead and decrease the text size a little bit as well. So we'll go with something like 40, and I think that's looking pretty good. Then we want to go ahead and add in a UI stroke to this, so let's go ahead and do that. Now we want to make sure that we set the apply stroke mode to border and not contextual, and then we'll go ahead and increase the thickness a little bit. I'm going to go with about 5, and then we also want to add in a UI corner to this as well to round those corners. And for the corner radius, I'm going to go with about 18 in the offset. And now that exit button is looking pretty good, so we can go ahead and collapse that. Now next what we're going to do is go ahead and create a frame, which is going to contain all of the buttons that we'll use to show different categories of our shop to the player. So we're going to go ahead and create a brand new frame inside of here, which we're going to rename to be called buttons. Then let's go ahead and resize this a little bit. So on the X offset, we're going to set that to about 185. And on the Y offset, we'll go ahead and set that to 100. Then we want to go ahead and adjust the automatic size to be Y so that we can add in a good amount of buttons to this without having to worry about having to readjust its size every single time. Now let's reposition this. And where we want this to be repositioned is towards the center left of our screen. So for the anchor point, we're going to set this to 1 on the X-axis and then 0.5 on the Y. Then going to the position, for the X scale, we're going to set this to 0, but then for the X offset, we're going to set this to -5 because we want this frame to appear a little bit further away from this main frame right here. And we're mostly setting this to -5 so that this appears right on the outside of the UI stroke, which is being applied to this frame. And the stroke is set to 5, so that's why we have to subtract 5 pixels. And then for the Y scale, we're going to set that to 0.5 to center this vertically. And once we hit enter, we can see that it is centered vertically towards the left-hand side of the UI. And we can go ahead and adjust the background transparency to 1. Then inside of here, we're going to want to go ahead and create a button. But what I'm going to do is actually duplicate the exit button and drag that inside of this frame right here. And then also, we're going to want to add in a UI list layout to this as well. Then let's go ahead and adjust the size of the exit button. So for the X scale, we can set that to 1 because we already resized our button's frame to the actual size horizontally that we're wanting. But then for the Y axis, we're going to go ahead and set this to 50 because we only want it to be about 50 pixels tall. Then let's go ahead and adjust the background color of this, which I'm going to go ahead and use the same blue that we're using for the main frame. We can also go ahead and rename this button, so I'm just going to go ahead and call this Gems, as that'll be one of the categories. Then let's go ahead and update the text of the title text label to say Gems as well. But we also also want to adjust the text size a little bit and make this a little bit smaller. So we'll go from about 40 to maybe like 26 or 28. It really depends on how you're feeling. Then I'm also going to adjust the UI corner a little bit because we want these corners to be a little bit less round. So I'm going to go with about 10. And now for the most part, I think that bun is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and duplicate this a couple of times so that we can see how we should adjust our UI list layout. But with the UI list layout, we're going to go ahead and set the padding to about 20 on the offset. Now, normally we would adjust the horizontal alignment to right, but considering how we have our size and stuff like that set up, we don't actually have to make that adjustment at all. And honestly, we don't really have to make any other adjustments to the UI list layout because it's all looking pretty good. And since this is going to be a multi-part video, what I'm going to do is only add in a single bun for right now. So we'll just leave this as gems, because depending on how long this episode is, we're either going to cover gems in this episode or we'll do it in the next episode. And then in the episode after that, we'll add another category to the shop and showcase purchasing other items. Anyways, we're pretty much done with the buns frame, so we can go ahead and collapse that. So now that we've done all of that with the GUI, there is still a couple of other things that we need to do, but we're going to be saving those for the next couple of episodes. For instance, we need to create a scrolling frame for the gems category, and then also create some other GUI elements for displaying all of the gem packages that the player can purchase. But like I said, we're not going to do that in this episode. Instead, because of how I'm trying to organize this little mini series, we're going to go ahead and do that in the next episode, where we'll also script all of those things as well. But to finish out this episode, we're actually going to go ahead and script some of the very basic components of the shop UI. So let's begin doing that. Now we can go ahead and collapse the starter GUI. And to begin scripting, we're going to go inside of the start player, inside of the start player scripts, inside of the controllers folder. And first, we're going to want to go ahead and update the GUI controller module script, because inside of here, we want to go ahead and add in our brand new GUI to this module. So the GUI that we want to add is called shop, and we're going to set that equal to player GUI, wait for child, and then we'll wait for the GUI called shop. Then we can go ahead and close out of that module script because we're finished with that. Then we want to go inside of the GUIs folder, and inside of here, we actually have the currency module script, which we actually do want to make one quick change to. And the only thing that we actually have to change is the line where we set the frame variable, because remember, we kind of changed how the GUI works a little bit. So instead of saying GUI.currency, we actually need to say GUI.frame.currency because of the changes that we made to the UI. And now that we've done that, we can close out of this module script, and then we're going to go ahead and create a brand new module script inside of the GUIs folder, which we're going to go ahead and rename to be called shop. Then inside of here, let's go ahead and create our usual variables. So we'll create a local variable, and then we'll also create a shared variable as well. Then let's go ahead and return that shared variable. Then towards the very top of the script, we're going to want to go ahead and create a variable for the GUI controller. So we're going to say GUI controller equals require script.parent.parent.GUI controller. And then we're going to want to make a couple of variables for this GUI itself. So we're going to go ahead and create a variable called GUI, which is going to be equal to GUI controller.GUIs.shop. Then we'll create a variable called frame, which is going to be equal to the GUI.frame. Then we'll create a variable for the exit button, which is going to be equal to frame.exit. And then we also want to create a variable for the open button, which is going to be equal to the GUI controller.GUIs.write. And then inside of the right GUI, we will have a frame. And inside of that frame, we have another frame called buttons. And then inside of there, we have a button called shop. And at least for right now, this is all the variables that we're going to create. But when we come back to this, we'll definitely create some more variables for different things inside of the GUI. Next, what we're going to do is create a function, which is a part of the local table. And this is going to be called update enabled. And now when this function is called, what we want to do is set the enabled property of the GUI to the opposite of what it currently is. So to do this, we will say GUI.enabled equals not GUI.enabled. And the reason that we're doing that is so that every single time we call this function, we will toggle it on or off meaning being displayed or not. And now when are we going to use this function? Well, we'll actually go ahead and create another function. This function is going to be a part of the shared table though, and it's going to be called onStart. And now inside of this function is where we're going to set up what happens when the player clicks the open button or the exit button. So whenever the player clicks the open button, we'll listen to the mouse button one click event, and then we'll go ahead and connect that to the local.updateEnabled function. And make sure you connect them like this. Don't actually call the function right there, otherwise you'll run into an error. So this is setting the open button up. And then we'll also do the same thing for the exit button. So you can literally copy and paste this and now say exit.mouse button one click. And now when the exit button is clicked, we'll go ahead and also update the enable property of the GUI as well. And now that's actually all that we're going to do inside of the script for right now. I know it really wasn't much at all, but I don't want to make the episode too long. So that's why we're going to go ahead and kind of stop it right here. Anyways, we can go ahead and close out of the script. And we are pretty much fully finished with this. One more thing that we kind of forgot to do is inside of the shop screen GUI itself, we forgot to include a UI scale. So we could have implemented this in the next episode, but what I would recommend that you do is just duplicate the UI scale that's already inside of the right screen GUI and drag that inside of the shop GUI. And now if you want to, we can go ahead and start this up and test this out. So once we get into our game, if we click the shop button right here, we should see that it either makes the GUI visible or not visible. So displayed to the player or not displayed to the player. And then if we click the exit button, we should see that the GUI disappears. So we can see that this is actually working exactly as it should be. And now in the next episode is where we'll actually implement one of our first shops, which will be the gem shop where you can trade coins for gems. And then like I said earlier in this video, I'm going to take a look at all of your guys' comments down below to see what type of different shops you guys would like for us to make. Because of how we're structuring this mini series, it's really not a hard thing for us to make a variety of different shops so that we can hopefully cover all the different types of shops that you guys might want. But anyways, if you guys are excited for that, make sure you smash the subscribe button and turn those post notifications on so that you get notified every single time we upload a brand new video, because the next couple of uploads are most likely going to all be part of this exact series right here. So you definitely want to stay notified. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this episode. As always, if you did enjoy, make sure you smash the like button. Please leave a comment down below letting other people know that it did work. I and they really do appreciate it. It helps everyone out. And as usual, if you want to gain access to all the scripts and the game file that we made during this episode, as well as a ton of other assets, you can visit MonzterDev or my Patreon, link down below in the description to both of these. You can gain access to a ton of assets to easily create your next Roblox game, as well as support me in creating all the content that I create. Anyways, with all that being said, I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.